We're live, but we're also virtual. That's the story of our world these days. I know we have people from all over, but for those of us who are um, from the Bay Area, not only have we had the usual insult of the last 6 months. We're coming on 6 months of sheltering in place, but today we woke up to what seemed and looked like Armageddon. I saw people call it nuclear winter. Um, I had one of my first appointments in the morning. The person said she woke up at 8:30 in the morning and she didn't know if it was 8:30 in the morning or 8:30 at night, except there was this strange orange hue. I think the weather report was we had a dense layer of fog topped with a massive amount of smoke. And what that left us with was a very strange day. A strange day in the midst of a very strange year. I guess we could only go as far as the first 9 months of it, or 8.5 months of it, but it doesn't look like it's going to get any less strange. And not that it's really relevant to my Dharma talk, other than how the personal and the cultural or the societal join together. My year began very early in January with the death of my mother, and about 2 years of her sickness leading up to that death. So death and what I'd optimistically say maybe rebirth has been part of the experience for me, feeling very close to impermanence. And then this massive change in our world came about. So impermanence is quite visceral. And if you're paying attention, you'll become to experience, not just know with your mind, but experience with your whole body how much you don't know about this world, how much surprise and unpredictability there is in the world. And if you're practicing and you're looking at yourself, then you might also be able to notice how much you strive to create certainty and predictability, and how much that effort to create unpredictability and security actually gets in our way and keeps us farther and farther away from actually what's happening in the moment. And probably, we often, you've all heard this statement that was from Zen Master Bon Soeng, is that the purpose of Zen is to understand yourself and to help all beings. So, and if you think of understanding yourself and helping all beings as separate things, you're going to get lost in duality. But fundamentally, our experience in what we call the outside world is actually all mitigated by our internal world. So when we say mind makes everything, an aspect of that is that all experience is mitigated by our own consciousness. So we know things through our own experience. We don't know things independently of our own experience. So this talk is going to have a few different components to it. But I want to start off with a story that happened at a practice with Empty Gate Zen Center, and some folks from Alaska were on the practice also. And we were chanting the morning bell chant. And I happened to run or be the facilitator for this practice. And the way we do the morning bell chant generally is I play on my computer the recording of the morning bell chant that's up on the Quantum School of Zen website. And then we're all muted, and we're all chanting to the recording of the morning bell chant that is on the Quantum School of Zen website. And we do that by my sharing the computer sound from my computer. We've been doing this for a few months now. And because I've been listening to the chant just like everyone else is, for me, the sound has been perfect. And I have just made this assumption that the sound is coming across to everyone else as well as it's coming through my computer. And we were about midway through the chant, and I thought, wait a minute. I'm hearing it through my computer. I'm not hearing it through the internet. So I actually don't know how it sounds to anybody else besides me. And it was a bit of a shock. It was one of those experiences that it broke open my assumptions. It broke open my view. And I realized quite directly how easy it is to become a slave to our own perspective. I had this sense that the sound was working because of my experience, but I left out a very, very important part, which was the sound is also going through the internet somehow and ending up on each individual computer. And we were in many, many different, obviously, locations. So really, I didn't know, but I assumed I knew. And my experience has taught me that this small little moment of realizing how my view traps me, or maybe you should say it, the projection of Jeff, the self, gets trapped in the worldview. And unless we have practice to poke holes in that self-view, we're more and more stuck in the prison of our own view. We believe what we experience, and we believe what our experience tells us. Now, of course, on one very basic level, we must trust our experience and work with it. But our practice is predicated on not knowing. And even when we're thinking that we're practicing with not knowing, we have to remember somewhere that we're always getting trapped in our own perspective. And one thing that makes it a problem is that our perspective is based on what sociologists and political scientists call confirmation bias. Because we believe it, we see in the outside world what we believe, and that confirms our belief. So there's this constant feedback system of confirming our ideas and beliefs. And sadly, what happens is we often discard or rationalize what doesn't fit our world belief. So there are things happening all the time that show us that our worldview or our self-perspective is off. But because of the way our consciousness is organized, we don't notice it unless we are affirmatively practicing or affirmatively trying to see the flaws of our own perspective. And it's a very, very difficult practice because everything about life is pushing us towards security and predictability, which is a fabrication. So life conspires to keep us stuck in a fabricated view. Zen practice is very particularly oriented towards deconstructing or blowing up that perspective. So to be a real Zen practitioner, means you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to see the flaws in your own argument. And to hold things in a non-dualistic way. So even while you're vehemently or passionately offering your perspective and engaging in the world from that perspective, at the exact same time, there's an awareness that you really don't know. And that if you pay attention with clear eyes to the world around you, the world will actually teach you. But it's our job to be open. And I think that for a lot of us, practice is the practice of learning to be open. Just by using not knowing, by keeping what we call this don't know mind before thinking, we can perceive. But in as much as we're lost in our concepts and our thinking, we're unable to really see clearly enough to understand the world around us. So we stay stuck in the prison of our own perspective. And when it seems like, when you hear the question in your mind, I don't understand why this keeps happening to me, you can bet that it has something to do with your own perspective. In some ways, and I want to be careful here because this is not, there are many ways that this isn't enough of a wide enough perspective. There are traumatic things that happen to us, that happen by society, by other people, that we don't necessarily seem like we bring onto ourselves. But our perspective and our way of living in the world brings to us our experience. And the wider we can keep our mind, the more free we can be within our own experience. I've said this before, but what I've learned as from being a psychotherapist all these years is that rigidity and inflexibility are important components to difficult mental health. The wider and more flexible we are, the more mental health we have, because we can work with things. The more rigid and tight we are, it means we have less ability to work with the unpredictability and the difficulties that arise in life. So to combat that, we become more rigid and more controlling. And I can't speak for everyone, but my experience that it ends up not working. So it's in the freedom of flexibility that we can actually have a clearer mind, a more loving, open, and compassionate heart, and to be able to act in the world that brings more of that. So again, understand your true self means work with the world around you, perceive what's appearing, and gain wisdom from your experience. So for many of us, when we're practicing, especially in meditation, although if we're practicing in our everyday life, these things come up also. But in meditation, we're often face to face with our difficult emotions, our anger, our fear, our insecurity, our sense of being wronged, our sense of not being seen, our sense of feeling alienated and separated. All of these human conditions that arise for us as we're sitting quietly and watching and perceiving our experience. And sometimes you'll hear a meditation instruction that'll say, note what you're experiencing. So let's say, for example, you're experiencing some anger or fear. The meditation instruction would be something like note it. Note that it's fear. Note that it's anger. And that is a valuable technique or a valuable tool to help understand mind and body, heart and consciousness. But it's also a little bit incomplete. Yes, you want to note it, but you also want to perceive it. So if you're noting anger and you just really literally start saying in your mind, anger, 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 you're identifying a concept, but what you're leaving out is experientially what anger actually is for you in that moment. So don't only note it, but note what's it like in your body? How does anger impact you? What's going on in your body while you're having this experience? What's going on in your thought process when you're having this experience? Notice the way mind can generate or maintain anger. Maybe, for example, somebody cuts you off while you're driving, you slam on the horn, and maybe at its worst, you raise your middle finger. But then you drive away. It's gone. And if you look at your body, you might notice the adrenaline at first has arisen, and slowly, slowly, slowly it calms down. But then notice the interaction of your thoughts and that adrenaline. The more you maintain the thought of that moment, the longer your anger will be maintained. So we get overcome by anger because it gets fed by our thoughts, our ideas, and our beliefs. So when you're practicing with anger, you have to slow down enough to notice what it is you're actually thinking and to notice the relationship of the thoughts and the emotional and physiological response of anger. So I suppose this is a long way of saying a very simple point. When you're sitting, sit with your whole being. Notice your sensations. Notice your experience. And when you're working with your emotions, try to broaden your perspective so you're experiencing all of it. And you might discover some very strange things. You might discover, and I'm making this one up, but you might discover that your little toe on your right foot moves when you're angry. If you don't pay attention to your body, you won't know that. And you might say, well, what's the point of knowing that? But it's very likely that once you've learned that, the first thing you'll notice is that moving toe. And we gain wisdom by understanding ourselves. So if I know that when I get angry, my right little toe starts moving, when I notice my right little toe moving, that tells me something. That helps me be more present with my experience. Many times as practitioners, we think, if I do this practice, then I'll get rid of that thing I don't like. And of course we want that. But from the perspective of our Zen practice, that's misdirected practice. We don't practice to get rid of something. We practice to become everything. Really, the Buddha's basic teaching was there's no separation between me and the universe. It's one. So to practice with the desire and the goal of getting rid of something is a dualistic and somewhat diluted practice. Because, again, you may have a different experience than me, but my experience is the more I try to push something away, it just pops up somewhere else. Now, I'll say that with one caveat. If you're finding that your mind thoughts, that damn person, how could they do that to me, that damn person, and if you notice that going on and on and on and on, there is a valuable tool of just raising a mantra and replacing that thought. If you can interrupt the thought, your mind will move on. And when your mind moves on, reality changes. I've heard one teacher make this point that if you really look at your thoughts while you're practicing, while you're meditating, you likely can't remember four thoughts back. Because mind is quite associative. In fact, what we're doing in meditation, when I was doing some research for my master's thesis, I did some research on Zen and psychology and psychotherapy, and they talked a lot about two kinds of thinking. There's associative thinking, and then there's rational thinking. Rational thinking is when one thought appears and you grab it, and then you start to think about it. That could go on for hours. Associative thinking is more like a simmering pot of water that bubbles. So thoughts just bubble up. I'm going to eat dinner after this. I wonder what I'm going to have for dinner. Followed by a thought of some experience in the middle of the afternoon. Followed by a thought of politics. Followed by a thought of hunger again. They just bubble up. And with associative thinking, we just let it go. Watch your mind. Watch your heart. Keep a don't know mind and pay attention. That's the basic meditation instruction. Question everything. What is this? But we have to watch. We have to become aware. So, again, the caution is be careful of practicing to get rid of something. We're practicing to become what we already are, to be able to embody and express our true nature. So one more point, and then I'll open up for comments or questions. And that this topic, you might say, is resilience. As I started this talk, I talked about all the difficulties we've been facing for the last 6 months, and of course we can go back further than that. To be a Zen practitioner, I said, means meet the moment. To meet the moment means you have to have resilience, because the moment may bat you around. The moment may be challenging. The moment may actually be painful and difficult. The moment might require that we drop into the repetitious mundaneness of life at home without distraction. When I took a week off last week, that's why I wasn't here, and we didn't go anywhere. We stayed home and we did some things. But before the vacation started, I thought, I'm not going to work, and I'm not going to do the Zen Center stuff. That's what I have to break up the sameness of the everyday background of being at home all day. And if you take that away, that's actually going to be more difficult. This is personal to me. For somebody else, they might say, oh, that's great. Then it'll be easy. For me, my schedule and my structure help me move through my life and find the circumstance that I can express myself in. So You've often heard me say that the Chinese said it takes three things to practice Zen: great question, great courage, and great faith. I've already been talking about great question, this not knowing, this willingness to be a little bit naked when we meet the moment and not be so protected by our knowing. The second one of great effort or great courage is about resilience. It's about coming back. It's not being too attached to our own ego and our own sense of self-aggrandizement, if you will, although that maybe a little is too strong. To be able to come back, to learn from experience without being overwhelmed and drowned by that experience. To be able to embrace the difficulties rather than push them away and try to create some idealized fantasy of a life without difficulties. So all the Zen teachers of old, or at least many of them that you read, know about the fact that practice is a lifelong endeavor. As soon as we think we have it, that's the moment we lose it. Because it isn't a thing to have. What we're working with is the ability to be present, alive, and fully experience and engaged with the moment. Sometimes you'll hear teachers talk about, you don't hear this so much with Zen teachers, but spiritual teachers, psychological teachers, about doing something that will bring more joy, more happiness into your life. And there's this idea that if you pursue happiness, you will get it. What feels more important to me is happiness is an experience that comes and goes. What we're really doing is being resilient enough to be present and to handle the moment that we're living, rather than trying to shape it and make it be a certain way, to be alive and expressive within it. And that takes effort, that takes courage. I mean, we all know this, just the courage to express yourself. In these years of social media and all the ways we can be exposed through what we say, it's easy to become cautious and held back. The world can be a difficult place. There are critics. But our practice, again, it's an opening practice to allow ourselves to engage and fully experience, using Nabokov's words from Zorba the Greek, to experience the full catastrophe, the joys and the sorrows, the goods and the bads, the fullness of experience. So rather than being attached to some idea of a good life versus a bad life, practice moves us towards a fully open and well-lived life. And then we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll finish with a little story about Zen Master Bon Soeng. One ceremony weekend, I was back in Providence for the ceremony, and oftentimes during a ceremony, Zen Master Bon Soeng would get up and he'd give a little, he'd say, I got a gift for you, I'll give you a little talk. So he said that one day a student came to him and said, Zen Master, I'm going to follow you wherever you go. When you die, I'm going to follow you there. And Zen Master Bon Soeng started laughing and he said, oh no, I'm sorry. You don't want to follow me there, because when I die, I'm going straight to hell, because that's where they need me. What he really said is, I'm going to go straight to hell and open up a Zen center. That's a Zen practitioner. You don't only go where it feels good, you go where you're needed. You follow the experience. So if you just want happiness, if you just want heaven, you might find some of it. But in traditional Buddhist viewpoint, and I'm saying it this way because I don't know that I believe or even understand this, that some people get born into the God realm. They have a great life. It looks like everything is perfect. But from that place, if you're born into that life, you spend all of your good karma during that life. So in your rebirth, you might be reborn as a flea. But in the human realm, right smack in the middle, you have a chance to change your karma, to change your life. There's a difference between just playing out your life without effort, without awareness, without practice, and living a life that's pushing at the edges, that has resiliency, that's motivated by great doubt, but also great love and great compassion. In this moment, what can I do? In this moment, what little piece can I add that will enhance this moment, not only for myself, but for the rest of the beings that are involved in this moment? So in Zen practice, we don't chase after happiness. We're practicing to be fully alive and present and experience the moment as it is. And in our actions, in our beingness, to offer what we can to help. And this is a lifelong practice, and we need the resiliency because all too often we discover what we've done or said actually made things worse. And unless we have the willingness to accept that, to look at it and learn from it, we don't gain any wisdom. We don't change. But by working with the difficulties in our experience, we can gain wisdom, compassion, and be better able to be helpful to this world. So attain your true self and help this world. And like Zen Master Bon Soeng, if you find yourself in hell, that's the place to practice. A Zen student doesn't run to the good place. It stays right here and works with it. When the fires are burning, rather than go off to some safe place, although sometimes that's appropriate, again, I'm not trying to make absolute points, but wherever we find ourselves, do what we can. If you think running to someplace else is going to make everything better, it's very likely that you're going to bring everything with you anyway. So right now, what am I and what can I do? With great doubt, great effort and great courage, and great faith that if I just stay with it, I can enter into my experience. Faith in this moment. It's not faith in something outside. Faith that right now, I'm alive. Right now, I can act. Right now is the time.